What is up, everybody? Welcome into Shout, a Buffalo football podcast. It is our monthly live event right here at Wingnuts. We're at the airport location, 4600 Genesee Street. Here's a pretty big game tomorrow, I would say, right, Ryan? Bills, Eagles. The NFL is kind of ramping up here. We got the Houston Texans game up on the TVs in here. The playoffs start in 2 weeks. Ryan, how are you, my friend?
You know, I'm doing great. We are in a packed house here tonight at Wingnuts, and I think most of them are here to meet the guy right in between us, Connolly Cup winner, Elijah Kimball.
Dude, this is an absolute treat for us. Obviously, we got a big game to talk about tomorrow, but man, it was big game after big game for you this past season. You're in the house here at Wingnuts tonight. How are you, man?
Man, I'm feeling real great. I'm glad to be here. I want to thank Wingnuts for hosting me, and let's just have a ball. Go Bills, too.
All right, so I think that's where we got to start. So the Bills and Eagles tomorrow. Give me your thoughts here. I mean, obviously, offensively, so much has been made about the wide receiver position and maybe this offense not being what it has been in previous seasons, but they're averaging almost 30 points a game. If you go up and look, and they're sneaky still executing at a high level. What do you expect tomorrow against this Philadelphia Eagles defense?
I'm just expecting the Bills to go out there and do what they do. You know, week after week, we show up when it matters the most, so I don't expect nothing less tomorrow.
You know, both of these teams have superstar running backs. James Cook, Saquan Barkley, superstar running back right here with us as well. Do you model your game after any NFL pros?
If I had to pick one, I'd probably say Jahmyr Gibbs, but I really like Le'Veon Bell the most.
So Jahmyr Gibbs, I mean, watching him up close a couple of times now, there's really nothing that he can't do. And one of the things that I think is so impressive about him is what he can do is in the passing game. Do you feel like, I mean, if you think about it over the last 10 years, the Bills drafted James Cook a lot because of what he can do in the passing game. How much is that a part of your game, especially at the next level in a couple of years? Are you hoping to maybe make a splash in that part of it as well?
My coaches always tell me you got to be able to do everything. You got to be able to do what a coach asks you to do, no matter if it's blocking, catching the ball, even if you might got to go out there and play defense. So I definitely say I take pride in being a multi-type of guy on the field.
Now, is it fair to say you have a top 10 schools? Is that what I saw recently? For the audience that may not be aware, would you mind sharing those schools?
Okay, we got Miami, Ohio State, Notre Dame. Oh, no, not Notre Dame.
I say go Notre Dame. I'm an Irish fan.
Miami, Ohio State, Kansas, Tennessee, Florida. Ooh, Syracuse.
All right, so a little.
Okay, I got it. Okay. Michigan, Ohio State, Maryland, Florida, Kansas, Tennessee, Washington, Miami, Syracuse, and that's it.
What's that process like? So you finish your junior season, you're going into your senior year. When do you make that decision?
Around the summer, like July or June, one of those two.
Well, so when you finally make that decision, what are some things you're going to have to kind of weigh? Is it distance from home? Is it going to be the programs themselves, the need for a running back, maybe you getting onto the field sooner? What are some of the things you're going to weigh when you make that final decision?
I say some of the things I'm going to put into consideration is like, will I grow as a person and a player? How the system works, how the coaches work. Is it like family? Can we have regular conversations and not always talk about football? I definitely say I put things like that into consideration when it comes to making my decision.
All right, so you've got a lot of people waiting to hang out with you over there in the corner. But before we get out of here, Bills, Eagles tomorrow. You got a pick? You got a prediction?
Of course, go Bills.
All right, Bill's going to win it. All right, give it up for Elijah Kimball, man. Thank you so much for coming on the show, man. We appreciate you. All right, we're here inside Wingnuts, 4600 Genesee Street. It is a massive game tomorrow, Ryan Talbot, and we got a lot to get into on this preview episode of the podcast. Before we get too far down the road here, if you're not going to the game tomorrow, and I was just talking to a bunch of Bills fans about their plans for tomorrow, and they're still deciding if they want to go sit out in the rain. You show up to 4600 Genesee Street or maybe over at 1402 Millersport Highway, not a better place to watch a football game.
No, and you know, it was just on the billboard a few minutes ago, all the specials that they have on game day. You can't beat it. TVs everywhere you look, Matt. So no matter where you sit here, you're going to have a great view of this Bills-Eagles matchup.
All right, so Bills versus Eagles tomorrow. What's on the line? I think that's the best thing to kind of get into at the jump here. First and foremost, for the Bills, the AFC East is still in play, and I know it's not very likely because the Patriots are going to play the Jets and then the Miami Dolphins, and I'm not sure if there's a very likely chance the Patriots are going to lose either of those games, but you got to play out the string. For the Eagles, at worst, it's the number 3 seed where they currently sit. I don't think it's very likely for them to be the number 2 seed because the Chicago Bears just have to win one of their final 2 games to clinch the number 2 seed. So who has more on the line tomorrow, the Bills or the Eagles?
Yeah, it's 100% the Bills because it's not just the AFC's title, Matt, because that is still in play, obviously. And I will say this, the Patriots have a lot of players that are out tomorrow for that matchup against the New York Jets. Mac Hollins was put on the IR today. He is so crucial to this team in terms of, blocking for the run game, catching the ball, going up high for a lot of those passes. So I could see them potentially struggling in these 2 matchups. Now, can the Jets or the Dolphins do enough? Who knows? But for the Bills, you're also playing for higher seeding in the AFC wildcard race. And right now, the game that's on the TV, the LA Chargers are currently losing to the Houston Texans 17-10. If this, plays out that way, the Bills can jump to the number 5 seed if they win tomorrow against Philadelphia. So having that top wildcard spot, potentially going on the road to play Pittsburgh, who's playing good football right now, that's still a better matchup than Jacksonville and even, New England.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. And I also think if you're the Bills, you win this game tomorrow, and if you're trying to lock up that number 5 seed, I almost think you could consider playing a lot of backups against the Jets at home in week 18 to kind of save some of these guys, because there's something going on in New York right now. They're trying to probably get the first overall pick, or at least as close to it as possible. How do you feel like the Bills should approach? Let's say they win this game. Let's say the number 5 seed is in play with a win the next week. Are you holding some guys back? Are you going all in again next week to try to win, maybe play starters until the game is out of hand?
Yeah, I think that's it right there. Play starters until the game's potentially out of hand if everything plays out the way that you just mentioned. When you look at it, I just don't see the Bills going in and playing their backups and saying wherever we fall in the wild card standings is where we fall. They're going to want to have the best seed possible. So if there's a starter, though, that's dealing with an injury like Dalton Kincaid, Dawson Knox, yeah, hold them out. But if you're healthy, you got to go until you have that game out of hand and you have that one.
I want to start with the Bills offense here tomorrow against the Eagles, and you bring up Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox, and one of those guys is very likely not playing tomorrow. Limited, both of them were with a knee injury in practice on Friday, and that changes the math a little bit in the passing game, like maybe even in the running game. If Dawson Knox can't play tomorrow, he is a big piece up front in terms of what they run when they have 2 tight ends on the field. Jackson Hawes, Dawson Knox. The Bills signed Kaleki Latu to their 53-man roster earlier today, releasing wide receiver kick returner Mecole Hardman. And, when you have an injury like this, you have to make some kind of move. And I think what it said about Mecole Hardman is, we like you, we think you're explosive, but maybe we don't always trust you. And I don't think you can have a roster spot for a player you don't trust at this time of year. You could probably get him back on your practice squad, which is what they signed him off of a couple of weeks ago, and get yourself into a situation where Latu can be a 1-week kind of insert into the lineup. But if Knox doesn't play, I almost think that's sneaky a bigger concern than Kincaid, because what I think it could potentially mean for the run game.
Sure, because he's a major factor in the run game with his blocking and the ability that he has there. And if you were to ask me right now which one is going to be out, I might even lean Knox because he just popped up this week with the knee injury. Kincaid, they've been being very careful with early in the week, the last few weeks, and then he's obviously played. So we'll wait and see. But yeah, it's potentially damaging if you don't have Knox for the run game, because this is going to be a slop fest tomorrow based on all indications with the rain, with the weather, and you want your best blockers out there. As for Mecole Hardman, you're right. It's kind of like Brandon Cotterington all over again. We like you, you're explosive, but we can't trust you. The last punt of the game last week, Khalil Shakir was out there to field it. So I don't think that's a coincidence. These are the decisions, though, you have to make late in the season.
I think that there's a little bit of a misnomer about the Philadelphia Eagles defense. I think historically, over the last couple of years, this has been one of the better run defenses in the NFL. They just haven't been that through 16 weeks this season. They're ranked, I think, 12th in the NFL in run defense DVOA, which is a huge departure for a team that's been so good in that department. You think of Jalen Carter up front, who is expected to play tomorrow. Jordan Davis, who is an absolute massive interior run-stuffing defensive tackle. But the guy that I think the Bills are going to be missing some players in this game, but the guy that I think means a lot, Nakobe Dean at linebacker. I think the Bills are going to be able to exploit some matchups at the second level with Dean out of the mix. And I think James Cook, I think there's a world we live in where James Cook outperforms Saquon Barkley tomorrow because there's a couple things at play. Number one, obviously the Bills have to win this game. It's going to be home. You mentioned the weather. James Cook is taking a run at maybe the NFL Offensive Player of the Year award. He is leading the league in rushing going into this game. Couple more touchdowns in this one could be something that kind of springboards him towards that award.
Yeah, it's a massive game for both players, but you're right. With Dean being out for the Eagles, that's a massive loss, and I think that you're going to be able to exploit that, and not necessarily just with James Cook. I don't think the Bills are going to run Josh Allen a lot with a foot injury, but Ray Davis is running the ball pretty well when given opportunities. Ty Johnson runs the ball fairly well. So when you look at down that depth chart, I think this is going to be a run-heavy game, and I like Buffalo's running back room top to bottom more than Philadelphia's. And, no knock on Saquon Barkley. He's not having the type of year that he had 1 year before, but he's been playing better and running the ball better the last few weeks.
Here's the other thing that I think what the Bills have done this season really well is lean into what they do well. And I think there's no better game to get ready for this one for the Bills to watch than what the Chicago Bears did against this Philadelphia Eagles defense. I think it was 4.5 weeks ago. So look at these numbers, Ryan. I sent it to you earlier today. 22 carries for 130 yards and a touchdown for Kyle Managi. DeAndre Swift, 18 for 125 and a touchdown. The Bears absolutely ran the ball down the throat of the Philadelphia Eagles. And I think this is one of those games where you look at a fully healthy offensive line, Jackson Hawes, Reggie Gilliam, probably super upset about not making the Pro Bowl, which, the Reggie Gilliam fullbacks matter movement on social media has been extra strong over the course of the last couple of weeks. He probably should have been a Pro Bowler. He's going to be playing with a chip on his shoulder. And I think the Bills have to assert themselves and look to deploy a similar kind of game plan in this game.
Yeah, that's the blueprint. We saw the Bears work it to perfection. Caleb Williams didn't have to be outstanding in that game. Obviously, Josh Allen is a much better quarterback, though, than Caleb, so that works to Buffalo's advantage. Having a fully intact offensive line works to Buffalo's advantage. Philadelphia without Lane Johnson in this matchup is a huge loss for them because I do think Barkley's going to have a lot of success on the ground, but missing one of their key pieces on the offensive line is another thing that benefits the Bills in this matchup. So go in if you're Buffalo, lean on the run game, and especially in the rain, keep moving the chains, control the clock, and make it tough for the Eagles to stay in it.
One of our listeners over on X right now, Mark, regular listener of the show, we appreciate you. Shout out to that. He said, James Cook is definitely scarier than Saquon Barkley this year. Cook, 14 touchdowns, 5.7 yards per carry compared to just 9 touchdowns and 4.5 yards per touch for Saquon Barkley. One of the things, I don't want to jump too far into the Eagles yet because we're going to get there, but one thing we could talk about for a minute, this passing game, there's 2 things that are happening with them over the last month. Jalen Hurts has been going down the field at a higher clip, and he's got the receivers to do it. I mean, if you look at this wide receiver room in Philadelphia, it's a Buffalo Bills fan's dream. I mean, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Smith a first-rounder, A.J. Brown a second-rounder who's played at an all-pro level for the past 5 seasons, was huge in that Super Bowl last year. They are attacking defenses down the field, and Jordan Poyer is not going to be available tomorrow. He's got a hamstring injury. He will miss. The other thing that they're doing in Philadelphia is they're going no huddle. So that's something that's going to be interesting how the Bills combat that because the Bills do such a good job at muddying the picture pre-snap for quarterbacks. If they can't do that because the Jalen Hurts is running no huddle, a very quick pace. That's going to be interesting to watch how that matchup plays out.
Yeah, that's really tough for the Bills in terms of potentially how they match up. Substitutions, obviously, you can't do that. And if you're going no huddle. So those are some of the things the Bills are going to have to worry about in this game. So it's going to be really important to keep the Eagles in those second and long, third and long situations where maybe then they're not going to be going up speed or going, up tempo, trying to move the chains in those short yard situations. Easier said than done. Daquan Jones not playing in this matchup. You mentioned Poyer. Those are two big losses in terms of the run defense and how the Bills have been playing as of late. So both of these teams are missing some key players. This one's going to come down to the wire, in my opinion.
Let's get back to the offense for a quick second for the Bills and I'll put a bow on that. By the way, it was Christmas week this week. Did you get anything good?
Oh, yeah. I got an old arcade game with 2 wrestling classics on it from when I was like in the when I
what are the games?
So it's now I'm blanking on the 2 names of the games, but they were WWF arcade games that I played as a kid.
Nice.
So so you can pick through all those and play the modes just like when I was a kid. Go into Aladdin's Castle arcade as a kid.
It's weird. I'm 43 years old, and to me, a perfect Christmas is getting a bunch of hoodies. And I think I got like 3 different hoodies from different parts of the family, including my kids, who picked out a really cool hoodie for me. So that was really exciting. All right, let's get back to the Bills' offense here. Josh Allen, good to go. A little bit of a scare after last week's game, foot injury. I mean, tough as nails, a guy that no matter what is going to get out there and play in a big game against the Eagles. And the other part of it, too, that it's interesting about this matchup in particular is when the schedule came out, this was, I think, one of the premier games on the NFL calendar. And you probably would have thought at this point in the season, these are 2 teams that are maybe duking it out for the number 1 seed in their conference. That's not necessarily the case now. But offensively in this game, I think the biggest question for Bills fans is who's going to play at wide receiver. Last week, Gabe Davis and Keon Coleman, healthy scratches in that game. The Bills move on from Coleman, from Mecole Hardman, excuse me. So now there's probably an extra roster spot available for one of these wide receivers. Do you think the Bills make changes at all? Is there a consideration to maybe making Joshua Palmer inactive to kind of continue to spin the dial, or do you keep him active? I know some fans are ready to maybe sit down Brandon Cooks, who's having a couple of miscues himself. How do you think this looks at the wide receiver position tomorrow?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't think, as much as Bills fans are going to hate to hear this, I don't think you can sit Palmer or Cooks. You are working on your rapport with both of those players if you're Josh Allen. Palmer has missed a lot of time with injuries. Cooks has come in here. Now, the drops are inexcusable, but he's also the only guy that's been getting open downfield the last 2 weeks. Dropped them both. Can't happen, but you want to work on that rapport. So I think both of them are active. Obviously, Shakir is active. Shavers is active. If I were to guess between Gabe Davis and Keon Coleman for that 5th spot, I think they're going to go Coleman this week. I've been saying this the last few weeks. They know what they have in Gabe Davis. I think come playoff time, after weeks of being inactive, he's going to be out there and he's going to be playing, as odd as that sounds. But they trust him. This is a few more weeks to maybe get fully healthy. I don't know if he was necessarily playing at 100%. And this is just to try to see what the rest of this roster looks like.
I'm going to disagree. I'm going to say that it's going to be another week inactive for Coleman, and Gabe Davis is going to get the thumbs up. And the reason being is because there's a trust level with him that I just don't think Keon Coleman has necessarily earned yet. Now, you could do some type of flip where you make Coleman and Davis both active this week. I don't think you're necessarily worried about how much you're losing with any of those other receivers if you put them down. But I agree with you. I think the 2 S's are guaranteed. Shakir and Shavers. They're going to be in the lineup somehow, some way. I think it comes down to how many guys do you want to make active at the wide receiver position. The other piece of it, too, is like you're worried about Keon Coleman's confidence level at this point. But I don't necessarily know if bringing him back this week after making him a healthy scratch is going to do a whole lot against this defense. Because I mentioned how middle of the road the Eagles' run defense has been this season, they are top 5 DVOA against the pass. It is going to be a grind for Josh Allen in this passing game.
Now, I will say this, Matt. If the weather forecast holds true and it is a downpour type of game, maybe you do want Davis and Coleman active for their blocking ability. And maybe that does lean to Cooks, who I just said I wouldn't take off the field, coming off because he's not as good of a blocker. He's undersized, smaller.
Is this crazy? I'm making Cooks or Palmer inactive before I'm making Cooks inactive.
It's not crazy. I mean, you paid this guy $13 million and he had what? 1 catch for 2 yards last week in a game where you needed as much help as possible. He hasn't stepped up since the Atlanta game where he was injured. It wouldn't shock me if the Bills were rolling the dice again. It's just with the money that he's earning, it's tough for me to see them take him off the field.
We're here at Wingnuts. If you're just tuning in, over 1,000 people watching across all 3 platforms live one night before the Bills take on the Eagles in a massive NFL showdown right here in Orchard Park. We're going to flip the script a little bit, get to the defensive side of the ball in a minute here. But before we do, let me ask you kind of like an off-the-cuff question here. What was your favorite memory of 2025? On the show, of course. Right. I'm not going to make you go into your entire life here, Talbot.
That's a tough one because, we do all these live shows that I love so much. Going on the road with you for some games. The Atlanta trip was a good time. I would put that up there despite the game and how the Bills played. That might be my choice.
I think that's probably a good one. I'm going to say my favorite memory this year was you running the entire podcast while I was on vacation at Universal Studios. It was fun watching you have to do all the stuff. You did a great job. So I think that,
thank you.
Maybe we might have to just kind of re-divvy things up in 2026. What do you think about that?
I'm down for it. I still have my little notebook with the step-by-step instructions. So I'm ready when called upon.
You're such a teacher, too. You give yourself a list of instructions, and I just see you just start to glow. It's amazing.
Until I have it down, I've got to have those instructions in front of me.
All right, so let's get to the defensive side of the ball. It is maybe panic time on this defensive line. You mentioned it earlier in the show. Daquan Jones at defensive tackle. He is going to be out tomorrow, still dealing with this calf issue. My read on the situation is if this is a playoff game, I think Jones probably plays. But because it's not, and they probably want to get him close to 100%, they're holding him back. And, man, they're showing some real confidence in Fedarian Mathis because he's going to probably be on the field for maybe 50% of the snaps tomorrow. You got Deion Walker. You have Larry Ogunjobi, who was a healthy scratch last week, and then the rookie TJ Sanders. To me, if I'm the coaching staff, if I'm Bobby Babich, Ryan Nielsen, Marcus West, Sean McDermott, I'm in that room this week imploring TJ Sanders, telling him, listen, this is your opportunity to make an impact. There hasn't been an impact game for TJ Sanders this year. He's healthy. He's going to have an opportunity to play at a high level tomorrow. I think you need to see more from him against this Philadelphia Eagles team tomorrow with Jones on the sideline and Ed Oliver still kind of working his way back.
You absolutely want to see more from him, but, man, this guy has been given an unfair shake, having to play defensive end a lot as of late because of the injuries on this defensive line. That's something that always makes me worry that you're stunting a player's growth. And now you're finally getting to throw him back there as a full-time D tackle. I don't know if you're going to see the impact in this game necessarily. Deion Walker, though, obviously has had a great year. You want to see him continue. Ogunjobi after a 1-week healthy scratch. Maybe that's a wake-up call of sorts for him. The D tackle room has to be great in this game. I don't know if they have the manpower to do it, but we're going to find out tomorrow.
Tomorrow is the perfect time if you're looking for somewhere to watch the game. Getting out here to Wingnuts, they have. Listen, the wings are amazing, right? Like any kind of wing order that you put in here, you are going to be a big winner. I'm a sucker for this signature sauce, but look at this New York City themed specials available until January 6th. You got some Siggy Glizzies, New York Deli Stuffy, a hot pepper pizza, and New York City garden wings. I was talking to our resident wing expert over here, Big Stud Bundy, is in the house, and he said he had the New York style garden wings, and he said they were a big hit.
I heard they're pretty spicy too. I heard our friend Boom Boom also had a bite and his face got pretty red when he tried them. So if you like spicy and you like heat, the New York City Garden Wings, you might have to come and try.
All right, let's stay on the defense. Saquan Barkley tomorrow. Speaking of Big Stud Bundy, he has been a proponent of the Bills taking the ball first in every game this season. I share his opinion some of the time because if you think about it, who do you want to get the ball first in a game like tomorrow? The best player in the game, which I think is Josh Allen. I think if you hand the ball to Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley at home and let them come out and play from ahead if they're able to go down and score. And listen, we've watched this Bills defense on the opening drive over the last month. It has not been pretty. Do you think the Bills win the toss tomorrow? Is there any consideration to taking the ball first? I think that the main idea being the Bills defense, what is the big characteristic of it this season? They are great at second half adjustments. If in that case, okay, get your defense as far away from the field early, and you want the offense for the Eagles to be on the field to start the third quarter because you hypothetically would have made the changes necessary.
I feel like I'm going to change my name to Don Paul because I keep talking about the weather and I'm like a meteorologist. It's all weather dependent to me. If it is a downpour at 1 p.m. tomorrow, then I am going to defer, let them have the ball first. If the weather is clear and the rain's on its way a little bit later, I'm taking the ball while the weather's holding out, while it's holding up for Josh Allen and company, letting them have the ball first.
I like where your head's at there. No Poyer tomorrow, which likely to me means Cam Lewis will get the start at the other safety spot opposite Cole Bishop. I know a lot of Bills fans, sometimes when they hear Cam Lewis, they start to think about that Minnesota Vikings game. He's been a much better player than that, and I don't think he gets kind of the credit that he deserves. If he does play at safety, though, that is going to change the math for how the Bills deploy their dime defense. I don't know if you want to necessarily play a ton of base against the Philadelphia Eagles, who have been trying to attack the downfield. If Lewis starts at safety, do you think this is finally an opportunity to maybe get Hancock on the field, the rookie out of Ohio State, maybe in the dime role?
Yeah, absolutely. And Hancock's a player I want to see more from. You have Darnell Savage is another option, Matt. So you have guys, whether it's playing them at safety, playing them in a different specialty role. The Bills do have a little versatility or flexibility at that role, but I cannot stress, and it sounds weird saying this, how much the loss of Jordan Poyer means to this defense. When the Bills signed him to the practice squad, late in the summer, I thought, okay, maybe this guy's going to come up, be a mentor, be a leader. He has really stabilized this defense and played a much bigger role than I think anyone anticipated. So this is really, really tough for anyone that has to step up and fill in his role and then what it means to the rest of the defense.
I know he was hurt, but I think this is also a really big indictment on Taylor Rapp. And I know that he was hurt, so I want to bake that into it. But I don't know how we can live in a world next year knowing the kind of step that we've seen from Cole Bishop playing next to Jordan Poyer. And listen, I think you could bring Poyer back. He played so good this year. I'd be open to bringing him back on a one-year deal in 2026. The problem with that idea is, do you bring him back to be the starter or a depth piece once again, which I think I'm fine with all the same. But I don't think you can bring back Taylor Rapp. And I also think safety is sneaky a draft need as we look ahead to 2026.
I think you obviously take wide receiver with your first pick in this draft, but after that, safety might be the next big thing. And it really depends on what they think of Hancock's development and what they saw from him this year. He's as good of an athlete as they have on this team, so I do believe that he can be a very good safety in this league, but what do the Bills think about that? I'm all aboard bringing Poyer back for competition, not promising him a starting job, but I think if you're Poyer, this is the only place you want to be.
We got to get to the kicker situation because it is pretty brutal on both sides of this matchup tomorrow. Jake Elliott for the Eagles, he missed 3 straight field goals a week ago, wide left. It was absolutely one of the worst kicking performances I've seen in a long time. But I have a feeling that Michael Badgley, up off the practice squad for the Bills, is getting ready to say, hold my beer at any moment. I'm very concerned about the Bills' kicking situation going into this game if it ends up being close, if the elements are an issue, because the thing with Badgley that's been the biggest issue for him are extra points. And if this ends up being a close game, a missed extra point could change the dynamics of what this looks like in the third and fourth quarter.
I mean, look at the Bills game earlier this season against the Houston Texans. Obviously, it was Prater, but he missed an extra point early in that game, and then the Bills are chasing points. They're down 4 instead of 3 late, where they could have kicked a chip shot field goal, took it to overtime. Could have been a completely different outcome in that game. So with Badgley coming in his first week, missing an extra point, having a kick that doesn't land in the return zone, it was not a good debut for him, to the point where the Bills brought in 3 kickers for workouts. So, Elliott had a rough week, but I certainly trust him a lot more than Badgley, who's been kind of floating around here trying to find a home.
All right, we're going to do our one big key to the game here. We'll do our predictions, and then I want to talk a little bit about the playoff picture before we get out of here. One big key to the game tomorrow. What do you got?
I mean, it's stopping the run or limiting the run game, and that's going to be very difficult, in my opinion, without Jones, without Poyer. The Bills are going to really have to step up. But if they can do that, because Barkley, up until the last few weeks, has not looked like the same running back as a year ago. If they can keep him in check, then they have a really good chance of winning this game.
For me, the biggest key to the game is based off of one of my questions to Josh Allen this week on Tuesday. And I asked him, you think about what you guys have done on the road. I know they're playing at home tomorrow. What's been the biggest difference the last couple of games? Because we talked about it in the parking lot before this show. One of the things is, like, the Bills are going to probably have to go on the road consistently in the playoffs to advance to the Super Bowl. And earlier this season, think about losses against at Miami, at Houston, at Atlanta. This was not a very good road team. And he looked at me and he didn't have a lot to say. He said simply, take care of the ball. And I think in this game tomorrow, the Bills are a different team when they don't turn the ball over. And so making mistakes, putting the ball on the ground, not even in the, Josh Allen in the passing game. James Cook has had a couple of fumbles over the last month or so that have, I think, ratcheted up the concern level. So to me tomorrow against the Eagles, you have to play, even though you're at home, pretty close to perfect football to beat a team like this on the road that has the kind of explosiveness on offense and I think the playmaking on defense. I mean, we haven't even talked about him in this episode yet. Cooper DeJean is a guy in this game, playmaker, the Bills could have had a couple of years ago. They drafted Keon Coleman. So maybe if I'm Sean McDermott, I'm making Keon Coleman active in this game, and I'm telling him, hey, that Cooper, DeJean guy over there, we could have had him. He's not going to say that, but you get what I'm saying.
He is not, but I mean, DeJean only took about 4 pre-draft visits, and Buffalo was one of them. They were legitimately in on him, and they opted to go wide receiver. And, man, with his versatility and the different roles he could play, I'm sure the Bills are kicking themselves a little bit because that guy's a stud.
All right, it's prediction time here at Wingnuts, 4600 Genesee Street, right by the airport. It was really cool. We met Mexico Marty before the show. He is in town visiting family, not even going to the game back. He's flying back to Mexico, but he wanted to pop in to say hi to us really quick. Bills Mafia is big in Mexico, he was telling me. We want to do a live show out there. What do you think about that?
Sign me up. I'm all about it.
All right, so get out here tomorrow. Great drink specials, great food specials. Watch the game here at the airport location or over at 1402 Millersport Highway at Bar and Grill. Prediction time, Mr. Talbot. What do you got for tomorrow?
I've been going back and forth on this all week long. At the end of the day, I think it's going to be a close game, which is what we were just talking about with the kicker situation. And I trust Elliott more than Badgley. I don't think Josh Allen is going to run in this game, so he's going to be more one-dimensional. 23-20 Eagles in a sloppy game.
Listen.
I deserve it.
Listen, boo away. But listen, there's a bit that has been born here. When Ryan Talbot picks against the Bills, they tend to win a lot. I don't know. I mean, probably 90, 95% of the time. And I do think the Bills are going to win tomorrow for a couple of reasons. 28-24 is my prediction. I think this offense is still scoring at a level against a defense without a couple of key pieces. I know Jalen Carter is coming back, but Jalen Carter was on the field against the Bears a couple of weeks ago when the Bears absolutely ran over them in Philadelphia. So I'm not necessarily sitting here, or actually, was that in Philadelphia? It might have been in Chicago. Either way, it was 280 yards on the ground for the Chicago Bears against this Eagles defense. And that's where I think the Bills are going to be able to have success. Consistently move the ball on the ground. I don't think we can keep it a secret inside the building in Orchard Park about how much people think the Bills wide receivers stink. And at some point, that room is going to hear the noise and want to change the narrative a little bit. And I think this is a defense. They're good against the pass, but I think there are some cornerback matchups where you can exploit them. Adoree Jackson is a guy, whoever's lining up against him on the outside, Brandon Cooks, Gabe Davis, Keon Coleman, whoever it ends up being, they can win a little bit, get the ball in Khalil Shakir's hands, take care of the football. You're the Bills. You win this game. I
like it, man. I think we're going to be in for another close one. The last few games we've had here have been pretty fun matchups, so hopefully this is another.
All right, before we get out of here, I want to get to the playoff situation here, looking across the board here. The Bills can win their division if they win out and the New England Patriots lose at least one game. Very unlikely. We already mentioned it. The Houston Texans just knocked off the Los Angeles Chargers, which, to your earlier point in the show, is good for the Bills if they want to get that 5 seed in a matchup with the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are going to end up being at number 4. The question I want to ask you is, who is the team that you least likely want to face if you're the Bills in the playoffs?
So is this if they win the division or if they're in any scenario?
Any scenario.
I mean,
if the team you don't want to play the most.
Yeah, if it's any scenario, it's the Houston Texans right now, just because we already saw it and what it looked like and that defense and how it really went after Josh Allen. Now, do I think the Bills would come in and say, okay, we need to chip in that game, we need an extra offensive lineman? For sure. I think the Bills, though, are more likely to be a wild card team. So if I'm from that perspective, the team I want to see the least right now is maybe Jacksonville. They are playing great ball right now, and not enough teams are talking, or maybe national media analysts are talking about Jacksonville from that perspective. So, if the Bills go on the road to play the Patriots, if the Bills went on the road to play the Steelers, I would like the Bills in both of those matchups. Jacksonville would be the tightest of those 3 games.
I'm pretty in alignment with you. I think one of the things, the point that I kind of wanted to make about heading into the playoffs here over the next couple of weeks is the teams as currently how the standings sit that are going to be the top 4 seeds. I don't necessarily know if you're scared to go on the road and play against any of those teams. And I understand that Jacksonville has been a little bit of an offensive force over the last 6 to 8 weeks, but they played a lot of bad teams in that stretch as well. And I think playoff football is going to be completely different. You have Josh Allen. I think you got to make sure that foot is 100% healthy. And I think the real key to this Bills defense in the playoffs is getting Ed Oliver back, because I think it allows you to play everybody on that defensive line, especially a defensive tackle, more naturally where you saw them. TJ Sanders at DT5 changes the complete complexion of what that defense is going to be, because now you can have him just be a situational pass rusher. You can lean on Oliver on early downs, get Daquan Jones back to playing alongside him, and then Deion Walker can be that force on the second wave for that defensive line. I think we could see the vision that Brandon Beane had going in this offseason come to fruition if Oliver can get back for the playoffs.
Yeah, if you can get Oliver back, that will be huge. I think come playoff time is where you unleash Judon. I think I had some questions about him today from Bills fans. I think he's still getting up to speed with the playbook. He doesn't really play special teams like Andre Jones Jr. does. So there's factors and reasons for it. But even having him as a DN4, DN5 is pretty good for this team come playoff time. So get Ed Oliver back, have a full arsenal up front, and let them go and see what they can do.
We got about 2,000 people watching live across all platforms right now. Before we get out of here, one other thing that I want to talk about. You mentioned Andre Jones. That's I know a lot of people are like, who's Andre Jones? The Bills just elevated him off the practice squad once again for tomorrow's game. Go back and look at the snap counts from last week. He played 33% of the snaps on defense. Javon Solomon, the Bills' 5th-round pick from last season, he didn't play any defensive snaps last week. So it's unbelievable to kind of think about where we were with Javon Solomon back in training camp. He has become a special teams only player, and I don't want to diminish that value. He's really valuable on special teams. He made a couple of big tackles on special teams, but they're not even really making him a part of the equation on the defensive line. We're probably going to see Jones in that DE4 role once again tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. Solomon is athletic as he is. It just hasn't worked out This season, when they have tried him on the line, he hasn't been a factor. It's unfortunate, but like you said, you can't underestimate the special teams role, and he does a really good job there.
All right, I think that is going to do it for us. From here, we'll be live after the game tomorrow. Bills versus Eagles, one of the most fun games of the season. And, man, I cannot believe it. We are tiptoeing our way to the playoffs, and some exciting news in January. Whenever the playoff schedule gets set up, I know the Bills are probably going to be mostly playing on the road, but one scenario that I envision is Bills, if they can lock up the 5 seed, hosting the Houston Texans in the AFC title game. That'd be pretty cool, because then we could do a Saturday Night Wingnuts event right before the AFC title game. But we'll be back here at Wingnuts, either at the airport location or at Millersport sometime in January. Stay tuned for those details. We cannot wait.
Yeah, I always look forward to coming to Wingnuts. Can't wait for the next show.
All right, everybody, have a great night. We'll see you soon.